In this video, let's take a look at the workflow, how we could rebuild a nice computer table out of very basic geometry, cubes. And we do a little bit more of mesh modeling. In this lecture, we will also start exploring more how modifiers could be used to add details to our very impressive cube objects. So for example, here you can see we add a rounding command to round this corner, and then we add another rounding command for the additional corners. Also here, this is just one very simple leg, which we then mirror, round, and round one more time. Okay. We'll make a new scene. Go to Imperial and Inches. Let's add a new object, a cube. Again, zoom to the cube by going to View, Frame Selected. Press N, and in Transform, now here for X, we type in 47 inches. Y will be 28 inches, and Z, the thickness of this plate, will be 0.75 inches. Because we used the dimension values to change the symmetrical cube into a rectangular shape, we have a scale factor, and we know we need to apply this. Very good. Now, how do we turn this into the shape we just saw? That's very easy. We can go to Edit, go to Edge Select, left mouse button, click, Shift left mouse button, click, and I select all these vertical edges. And inside the property menu under Transform, use Edge Data, you see here something called Mean Bevel Weight. So bevel is the command for rounding an edge. In Blender, the bevel command is a combo tool. It can do a chamfer and it can do a fillet. And the weight, think about the weight as a percentage. Currently, this is set to 0. And if we set this to 1, you see actually these edges become blue. We tell the software to apply 100% to these edges of the bevel modifier. Now this sounds maybe a little bit odd. Let me show you how this works. So we go to the modifier, then add modifier bevel, and you can see that all edges are affected. Well, that's not what I want. Under limit method, I could say, or I could select weight. This is this weight here. So now when I click this, only the edges which have an edge weighted will be affected. I'm going to select just this edge and change the value. So you see how all the other edges remain being rounded by 4 inches. And then here, when we set this to 0.5, this is rounded or beveled by 50% of this amount, so 2 inches. Obviously, we want to set this to a bevel weight of 1, so when we type in 4, this means 4. Okay, so these edges we would like to round by a value of 1.5 inches. Not too big, not too small. And you see that this rounding with a segment of 1 turns into a chamfer. To make this look rounder, so it looks like a fillet, then we can add more segments. With segments, what's the correct number? Well, we can type in 100 if you want to. Looks super round, but is a little bit overkill. Blender, what we do here is do very fast concept modeling. So it doesn't have to be super precise. That is not the goal of doing concept modeling here. So something like 3 obviously is too coarse, but maybe 10 looks actually pretty decent. Specifically when we zoom out a little bit, you don't even see the facets. When we do a rendering and we would get very close, then maybe we want to increase the amount of segments. But we always try to get away with the least amount of subdivisions or segments, because this lowers the amount of polygons. So what's a polygon? If I go to wireframe mode, there you can see that these are individual faces. And with more segments, I'm adding more faces to it. So I'm making the mesh more dense. We will go particularly into these values in mesh density when we start working with the subdivision surface modifier. Okay, so this looks pretty good. I would like now to, instead of having a straight vertical edge, fillet or actually chamfer the lower edge. And I'll show you a nice process how we can do this. So we go to the bottom view. We go face select the bottom face, go to the face modeling menu, and here's a command called Inset Faces. They call this Inset Face because into this selected face we are inserting another face. Coming from Rhino or Fusion or CAD programs in general, this essentially is an offset command. So we can click it, then move our mouse to the center, and you see here there's a value that's running. So I just click and then go to the menu here, and there it tells me the thickness is 1.01802 inches. We would like this to be just 1 inch. Very nice. Okay, so why did I do this inset? This is actually my target face at the bottom. Now I will go back to edge select with shift left mouse button all these edges, and these I would like to move up by half of my object thickness. If I go back to object mode, here I can see this whole cube or the geometry has a z height of 0.75 inches, which means half of it is 0.375. Okay, back to edit mode. We go to move command. Now there are two ways how I can do this. I drag this one up, upper left corner here where my mouse is. There you see the value, and I can now type in point or period 375. Be careful about the direction. So as you can see, I'm flipping the direction by hitting the minus key. And then I release the left mouse button, and there we are. Or I just do an undo. I show you the second way. I quickly drag this a little bit. So I did a move command, and then Blender shows you always the properties of the last executed command. So here I now can type in 0.375. Very good. Okay. One note about this. The moment I click an edge, for example, I'm doing another command. I'm doing a select command. And you see this toolbox is gone. So I cannot later go back and select all these edges and then modify where I move them to via the value. So every command we do gets this dialog box to modify the properties, but once we then go to the next command, we can never go back and modify the previous command values. Okay, so this so far looks pretty good. besides that, here, this is nicely rounded and this is not so good. This is a sharp corner. To fix this, I'm selecting all these edges here too, and click and drag, release the mouse button. There. That doesn't look too bad. For a quick concept study, this is actually fine. There is one problem. Let's go to the bottom view and zoom in to one corner. And there you can see the radius is 1.5 and the radius here is 1.5. Well, that is not correct. But I will show you how we can fix this when we will revise actually this body. But for a beginning exercise, this is perfectly fine. Again, 3D modeling I see very often as a process to explore ideas before we really go into fine-tuning everything and making it perfect, because perfection takes time and exploration should be fast. Okay, but what we can do is work on these sharp edges. We would like to round those. So we go modifier, add modifier, bevel, add another bevel, maybe 2 millimeters, segments 10, and let's go to wireframe mode, and you see all edges are selected. Well, that's not very good, particularly those edges here. I only want the horizontal edges. So limit method, we will set to angle. Okay. So now there you can see the top and the mid, but not the bottom edge is being rounded. And here's a value. If I click and slide this back at one point, the software will start there, rounding those. There we are. Very good. Okay, that looks actually pretty nice. To bring this plate now to an end, we need to position it. My whole object is actually 0.75 inches thick. If I go to a side view, we can also see here's my object center point. So when I move this up by 30 inches, so our computer table should be between 28 to 30 inches. There we are. Then this is actually 30 inches, but the surface is 30 inches plus half of the thickness. So to make this actually very easy, so I can always figure out where this top surface is, we will reset the object center point. So let's go to edit mode, face select the top face. Then we will press Shift S. So Shift S, cursor to selected. And you see this 3D cursor got moved to there. Then we will leave edit mode. And for the object, right click and say move the origin to the 3D cursor. So I zoom in a little bit so you can see how this center point will jump right to where the cursor is. There. Now this reads 30.375. Let's set this to just 30. And our tabletop surface is really at 30 inches now. The 3D cursor, I would like to go back to the world origin. Shift S, cursor to the world origin. Very good. Here we can call this tabletop concept or raw. Okay, we can drag this one to there. Here, this collection, right click, we can delete. And I will show you now how we can take this model, make a copy, and then do a refined version. So Shift D and escape. So we didn't move it. Then we hide this one. We can call this refined. That's very good. And I will hide actually this bevel command. And I will hide this bevel command and turn it on and off. Now you can see how we see actually the sharp edges. So this is good. So we want to see it. And what we will do is we will apply this effect into the geometry. Because we're going to apply this, this means it's baked. So we will turn this blocky cube into actual geometry that looks like this. 10 segments, let's go with 15. So apply and do, not duplicate. We go to apply. And then we can go into edit mode. And there you see it. There's now the geometry. Okay. So we know that this radius here is wrong. It has to be smaller. One easy way is we go to face select, select this, press X and say delete vertices. There, so that's all gone. Very good. Then we go to edge select, hold the Alt or the Option key, and then click on this edge. And you see it selects a complete loop or ring. That's good. And we would like to fill this. We will fill this with the F command. F like fill. There. Very good. Okay. Now we have a nice flat disk. And what we will do now is we will go back and go and say inset face by 1 inch. There we are. Very nice. Now, there you see now how this is actually smaller. This is correct. And I'm looking from the bottom. So technically speaking, if I rotate my view, so this is the correct orientation, we want this to move down by half of the original thickness. So 0.375. I'll move this one down and then see here minus 0.375. Very good. Let's go back to object mode to verify. Yes, it is 0.75. This looks beautiful. This bevel is still here. We can turn this back on visibility wise, so these edges are nicely rounded. So this is a really good model now. 2 things left to do. Right click and say shade smooth with the object selected. And one last check. Similar to when we scale an object via dimension and then we go apply scale. Because we extruded geometry, let's see if everything is oriented correctly. So we go to viewport overlay, face orientation. Is everything blue? It is. Let's say in case it is not. So this let's say this looks like this. In case you see this, then in edit mode we go select all and then mesh, normal, calculate outside. Or we use the quick favorite command as we set this up. So there we are. Very good. Few cleanups left. So what do I have here? There's actually a bevel weight. So press A to select everything. And then we set this to 0. So I click, enter 0 and enter. The limit here is set to angle. It will not use any weight, but this way I can clean up my model perfectly. I can turn off the face orientation, leave edit mode, and go to object mode. And we're done with that part.